we're really called to take this pain that we're experiencing in the world, to alchemize it, to pick up our cross, whatever that means, right? It can mean a million different things. We're all going to have a different cross, but Jesus is telling us to pick up our cross and follow him. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. Matthew 25, 35 to 40. I wanted to start here because this social climate that we live in online and just the real world, I don't know if you're feeling this. I don't know if I'm alone with this. I've talked with my wife, who she'll be on the next episode. It is a chaotic time. It feels that way. It feels like there's a lot of chaos. It feels like there's a lot of confusion and distortion online. It feels like there is a lot of deception. It almost feels like there are things that are just completely inverted. It feels like the false is actually the truth. It feels like the unrighteous are in the positions of power. It's confusing. It's confusing. I would say only if you don't have a strong connection to truth. Truth in my lens, in the Christian lens or the Christian worldview, is Jesus. The truth is Jesus. And I want to share a little bit of how I came to that position. And first, I wanted to share something because I think, there's a lot of, I grew up a Christian. I drifted away from my faith as I got into in episode 1 and then came back, within recent years. I was at church this last Sunday, and our priest said something. He said a few things. I took notes during his sermon. It was really good. And he was talking about what it means to live Christ-like, like what it means to actually live as a Christian. Because, oftentimes I know when I was younger, a lot of, the Christian theology was just kind of like, it seemed very judgmental. If you believe this, or if you're, in this part of the world, you're going to hell, and, it's only us that are saved. And there was definitely things that when I heard that theology, it was very confusing, especially as a kid. But our pastor this last Sunday said something really interesting. He said, as Christians, we're called to be different, not indifferent. And that makes the difference. And I don't know about you, but that hit. When I heard that, as Christians, we are called to live a different life, right? It's not the life of seeking endless pleasures and, the earthly pleasures and staying, influenced by this earthly realm. We're called to live differently. We are called to be an example of something different from this world. But yet at the same time, we're not called to judge. We're not called to view others as indifferent. That's a very difficult walk because, Jesus also called his fellow man and woman while he was here on this earth to transformation. He didn't want us to, continue our life of sin. He called us to transform and to be made new. And he said those who will follow these commandments and follow him and believe in him, that is the new covenant. We are the new Israel. And I was reflecting on these things. I was reflecting on the messages from his sermon on Sunday, and it was helping me kind of see things with a little bit more peace and a little bit more clarity. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today is how can we use discernment in the times that we live in, where there's a lot of chaos. Like I said, there's a lot of distortion and deception. How can we use discernment? And for me, as somebody who's spent a lot of time in Ukraine, throughout the Middle East and, even spending time in Gaza, like being there physically in Gaza, that was when I came back from Gaza, that's when I saw how deep the deception goes, how deep the division goes, because there's so much propaganda on both sides of, the Israel-Gaza situation. And as a humanitarian, as somebody who's trying to navigate the center path, it's like it doesn't really matter what you say, you're going to get labeled something. But your actions are, in my opinion, is the fruits of our faith. Like I don't, believe in our actions will save us. And a lot of people might call me out on that and say, Spencer, be careful with thinking that your actions are going to save you. That's not what I believe. What I do believe is that your actions are the fruit on the tree, and it shows who you are. And Christ said that, right? By your fruits you shall know them. And I think it's by our actions you will know the person. You will know who they are. And what I've learned in today's landscape is sometimes it's better to just lock in and go out into the world and do things that are Christ-like. Put aside the differences, right? I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, it's like 1 or 2% of Palestinians are Christian. I think it's like 10% of Jewish people believe that Jesus was the Messiah. But that's not going to stop me from going out into the world and helping them when they're in need, right? And finding ways to help people that, I might not break bread with on a day-to-day basis, but they're in need. They're suffering. And I don't need to get into the political reasons or the political backdrops for why they're suffering. That's really not my space. That's not what I'm interested in. Although it's fascinating conversations, but at the end of the day, to live Christ-like, from my perspective, and I would love to hear your perspective in the comments, so please comment below, but to live Christ-like is to actually love our neighbor. And it's to not be indifferent to our neighbor. It's to be different, right? Through our faith, right? We can believe different things, but then in our actions, to not be indifferent to others. And that's what makes the difference. That's actually how we spread the gospel. And, for me personally, I know there's a lot of people that are becoming Christ curious right now, especially since the Charlie Kirk, assassination. I think there's a lot of people that are really looking at religion or looking at Christ and becoming a little bit curious. And what I'll say, from my personal experience, it can be daunting when you come up to somebody who's very literate in Scripture. Make sure that you don't just get wowed by what people are saying and listen to their words. Follow their actions. Look at what they're doing. And let that be the fruit that signifies how healthy the tree is and how healthy the roots of that tree is. And so how do we really use discernment to look at people's actions? That's really what I want to talk about. And maybe we can use a couple examples. There's a big awakening happening right now, and I've talked about it on the previous show. And one thing I want to dispel, because I saw some comments, I am not of the left. I am not of the right. I didn't vote for either presidential candidate because neither of them represented my true values. I am down the center as it gets. And The strange part about being down the center is that you agree with both sides and you disagree with both sides. So when you agree with one side, you're labeled that's your side. And then when you disagree with this side, you're pushed away from that side. So that's why I don't look at things as left or right. I view we have both. We have left and right. We have good and evil within us. So it's an inward journey. And we have to be very, very careful with who we're following. We have to be very, very wise with who we're giving our energy to, who we are supporting. Whether it's the left politically or the right politically, right now we are being called to transcend that and to actually live Christ-like. The truth and the reality is it's hard to be Christ-like and be political and be on a political side. It is very difficult because certain things on both parties represent Christian values, and then certain things don't. We have to, as Christians, we have to really use our discernment properly, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Like I talked about on the last show, this Earth curriculum is incredibly difficult, and we have to decide how are we going to show up. So when I reflect on Matthew 25, to the least of those among you, you have done to me. So really do to others as you would have done unto you. What a beautiful teaching. And also in a world that is sick, that is divided, profoundly difficult to act upon that. Last year, being inside Gaza, breaking bread with people who are going through unimaginable amounts of suffering, without getting into my thoughts as to why they're going through that suffering, that's irrelevant. They are in a state of suffering. Just as the Jewish people experienced immense suffering during October 7th. Both of these peoples, incredibly traumatic. One thing I find very interesting is that Christ was right at the center of it. In this part of the world, I do find it quite fascinating. You have, Muslims and you have Jews. And both, by and large, reject the divinity of Christ, or at least Christ being a Messiah. Right? In Islam, Christ is viewed as just another messenger. He's not viewed as the Son of God. And in the Jewish teachings, they still believe that the Messiah has yet to come, because the Messiah will be, obviously there's so many different lenses within Judaism. I don't want to cast one judgment on them. Generally speaking, the vast majority of Jews do not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, that the Messiah is going to come, and the Messiah will be the one that rebuilds the third temple. Biblically speaking, Jesus came to disrupt the temple and even foreshadowed the destruction of the temple, because it was being used for untold amounts of sacrifices. There's an amazing film called Christspiracy that gets into all of this and really peels back the layers on why this happened, why the destruction of the temple happened. When we talk about what is the answer, what is the solution to all of this? Is there a solution? Is the conflict in the world ever going to end? What will end it? How can we bring about peace? And that's where I think Christ has really called us to share his message, to share the gospel, to share what he was really saying and what he stood for. Because when we pay attention to what he said, to the least of those among you, you have done to me. So how we are treating the least amongst us. So, I reflect on that personally. How many people, like I get DMs from people that are in need, or I see somebody that's on the street, the side of the street, that's begging for money. How do I treat that person? Do I show up for them? Do I try to help them? Do I give them some food, or like give them a couple dollars? Or do I just like try not to look them in the eye and just keep going? And I'll be the first to admit, I do both, right? I try my hardest to always give and always help somebody out now. I'm making a much more conscious effort of that, especially over the last couple of years, just being really brought to my knees when I see the level of suffering in the world. Where in your life could you be mistreating somebody who you think is maybe lesser than you or believes in different things? How can you show up? How can you shine light? How can you actually heal the world? And from my perspective, the way we heal the world is to live Christ-like. There's a trend that I see happening right now, which is, there's all sorts of different theories. Like with Charlie Kirk, there's all sorts of different theories and conspiracies about why this happened, who did it, is there more to the story? And I'm very interested in exploring those things and keeping my mind open. And at the same time, I see it as a potential way to distort the field, to distort the collective, and to, again, have us confused and in continuing to fall into these cycles of confusion, division, and ultimately also inaction, because inaction is a form of confusion. Because typically you're not doing anything or you're not acting because you don't know what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. You don't know if what you're doing is actually good or what you're doing is actually bad. With all of these conspiracy theories, all of these different ideas bouncing around, make sure that it's not taking your power away. Make sure you're not giving all of your energy, all of your power to things that really aren't helping you to become a better person. Because in the Charlie Kirk situation, whatever the reason is that he was removed from this planet, whoever was behind it and whatever ideology, whatever force, dark force was behind that, I believe it matters more how we alchemize the pain and the suffering of someone like him leaving, the pain and the alchemy of all the children and all the women that are losing their lives in Gaza, right? How do we alchemize all of this? How do we take all this pain, all this suffering, and use it for something good? Biblically, let's look into a couple examples here. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's Matthew 5, 3 through 10. That last line hits. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I can attest to that. When you are trying to do the right thing, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you will be persecuted for it. I went to Gaza during the war. Extremely dangerous. At night, when we were sleeping, our windows are shaking from the bombs that are striking just, several blocks away. You hear gunfire. We were walking. There's drones flying over. It's like a constant, zzz, just constantly watching everything. And we were in as humanitarians. We are on the deconfliction notices, but still, it's a war zone. Anything can happen. There's so many different accidents. Just that same week, a few people from World Central Kitchen were killed, but with an accidental airstrike. Very dangerous stuff. So I'm saying this because after going inside and experiencing the actual reality of war inside Gaza, there's probably only several hundred, maybe a couple thousand Americans at most that have actually been inside Gaza during the war. But when I came out to share what I learned, it was like both sides of the whole conflict were upset because I was just trying to share the raw, honest reality from what I was hearing. And what I was hearing is that there are a ton of people inside Gaza that never supported Hamas, are extremely angry with Hamas, and wanted nothing to do with this. Wanted nothing to do with this war, and they're very upset with Hamas for what they did. And when I tried to share that, it really angered certain groups of people. And then I also tried to share that there are civilians, there are innocent people that are being used as human shields, because Hamas is going into buildings that are schools, hospitals, or apartment buildings, and they're hiding amongst all sorts of different people, and they are using them as human shields. So it's like that is happening, and they are stealing things. And I just tried to share the reality from what I was hearing, but just to share that reality, I was condemned by people on both sides. So I was like, how do you actually do the righteous thing when it is condemned, right? You want to go help somebody, somebody's going to judge you and say, oh, you're just doing that to get attention. Or, oh, why didn't you help these people? Why are you only helping those people? So one thing I've learned is you can't control that. You cannot control how people are going to persecute you for doing the right thing. But what I will say is, don't let that stop you from doing the right thing. Because that's what Jesus is literally commanding us to do. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. From my perspective, going in to just help people with food and blankets and basic necessities, right? Like clothing those who are in need and feeding those who are hungry. To me, I'm just trying to follow Christ's teachings. And I got to experience it, that when you come out, you are still going to be persecuted. It doesn't matter. So Jesus is literally calling us to do that and then blessing us. In Matthew 16:24, Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. We're really called to take this pain that we're experiencing in the world, to alchemize it, to pick up our cross, whatever that means, right? It can mean a million different things. We're all going to have a different cross, but Jesus is telling us to pick up our cross and follow him. Take up our own cross. Take up the pain and the suffering and the difficulty that we have in this world and follow him and trust and believe that Jesus, he already defeated evil. And so what we're experiencing here on earth is this perpetuation of it's kind of like the remnants of what's left over from that evil. And yeah, it might rise again and receive, and become very powerful, but it cannot win. It cannot win. I was just having a conversation. It's like the Lord of the Rings, right? It's like there were certain light beings along the way during the Lord of the Rings. And there's this famous scene where Gandalf is warning Galadriel about this rise in darkness. And everybody thinks Gandalf's kind of crazy. But he says, I think there's something happening in the shadows that we are not aware of. And people called him crazy. People denied him. And of course, as the story goes on, he finds out that yes, evil had been subdued a long time ago, but it was rising again. It was gaining power. It was gaining traction, and it was going to become a serious battle. I can't help but think that that's what is happening in the world right now, is that we are feeding into very beautiful love and light energy, or we are feeding into the darkness. And 24/7, whether we're aware of it or not, we are feeding something with our energy. And so again, that's where it comes back to using discernment. Who are you following? And I'll take a moment to look at, the Erika Kirk message at the Charlie Kirk Memorial was so powerful. She literally forgave her killer on stage, and it moved me. It still is. It's hard to really comprehend. But then just after that, Trump gets up on stage and he says, he's like, I hate my opponents. I hate my political opponents. And you look at, he just says that right after Erika forgave the person who killed her husband. So for me, that was a really strong mask off moment to see Donald Trump. And like anybody, you see this guy's got a insane ego. And then you see like swarms and swarms of people just like worshiping him as like some saint. And, I think you saw the same thing with different presidents. It doesn't matter who the president is. It seems like they all kind of have their shadows. But in this particular situation, I think that really revealed it was like a mask off moment. The takeaway that I have is that we have to be really wise and not falling into political traps, and not, there's like good things that both political parties do. And we should celebrate those good things. We should honor those good things, and we should do more good. And then the things that we disagree with, it doesn't matter what side of things you're on. I always try to go down the middle. I always try to call out what I disagree with and call out what I do agree with. So in John 12:24, Jesus said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." This is all such a test. It's all a test. It's like, how are we going to show up? How are we going to engage in the world? How are we going to act? What are we going to believe? That is going to be the fruit of our labor. And that when we die, it's not the end. Right? Jesus says it right here. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. So it's like it's the natural process. It's what we have to go through in order to blossom, in order to like reach our highest potential. It's not easy, but we have to dispel those fears. We have to let go of our fear of death, our fear of being alone, our whatever fears that we're carrying and holding on. It's so much easier said than done, sitting right here and saying this. But it's a process. We have to let go of those fears and move into a state of unwavering belief. And the only way we can do that is to go on an inward journey. We have to go within. We have to really get to know ourselves. We have to know who we are, and we have to be very wise with what we follow. That's where I feel some of these spiritual tools are so important, right? Like going to church, having a really strong, faith-based community, having a strong family. Like that's why these are all tools to help us reach our higher potential, to help us like really, truly blossom. My life has gotten so much better since I left the old life I was living. And I walked away from so many opportunities to maybe be famous. I had a lot of fame around me, and it didn't resonate for whatever reason. At the time, I didn't understand it. People were calling me crazy for walking away from being with Logan Paul and Mike on Impaulsive and having millions and millions of views. I followed this voice that was just driving me to live for something greater than myself. And I believe we all have that voice. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, that voice gets drowned out by alcohol, by bad friends, bad influences, by drugs, by media, social media, scrolling on our phone, all of these things, all these distractions. We lose touch with that godly voice that is within all of us, that's urging us to do the right thing, to do something greater than ourselves. I just want to say that my life has gotten so much better since dedicating my life to helping other people, helping people that are going through some amount of suffering. And that's really, that's what we do at GEM, at the nonprofit that I work with. It's all about helping people at a time of deep need, whether it's a disaster that's struck, a natural disaster, or whether it's a conflict zone, whether it's a war zone. There's suffering all over the world. It doesn't matter where. There is suffering happening all the time. And we can either ignore that suffering and stay blind to it and pursue selfish ambitions, which we're given free choice. We're given free will. Obviously, you know that. You see plenty of people that are choosing that, are choosing the selfish life. And it can work, right? Because maybe God is preparing those individuals or us that are in that stage in our life, preparing us for something greater and using us to fulfill something greater that we can't see yet. So what I'll encourage is that everyone does a little deep diving in these times where there's confusion and there's deception, and you tune into your heart, you tune into your core, you quiet the noise, and you really ask God for guidance. Like, that's what I did. I asked God. I was like, am I meant to stay here? Am I meant to stay in this environment? Am I meant to stay, where all this money and fame and all this, it's like, it's comfortable, but I'm also feeling called to go out into the world and serve. And God made it very clear for me that I was not meant to live a selfish life of accumulation, that I was meant to go out into the world and serve, and I was meant to let go of a lot of things. I was meant to let go of financial safety and comfort and embrace the uncertainty. And I can honestly say that this is absolutely not me. This is God. God has provided for me every single step of the way. And God will do the same for you. God will do the exact same thing for you. When you pray and you ask God for guidance and you get that message and you hear God's voice tell you what to do, and if you follow it, I promise you, God will take care of you. The path will be uncertain. The path won't be easy. It will be difficult. You will be called to let go of things that you really love, that you are attached to. But when you let go of those things, you make space for something far greater. Yeah, I'm going to keep sharing this as much as I can. It's my testimony. I'm going to keep sharing that, I let go of that selfish life. I let go of the life of fame, and I went out into the world, and I just joined forces with other individuals here at GEM that were doing something great in the world. And I channeled my gifts and my passion and my energy into a collective, right? In this case, it's a nonprofit, right? I put my energy into something that I see as greater than me. And I've seen miracles, absolute miracles. Like in Ukraine, right now we're feeding over 800,000 people a month along the front lines. In Gaza, we're working on, multi-million-dollar deals to help bring in aid and food and water and tents and all sorts of different supplies into the Gaza Strip. And I just see Christ working through this. I see Christ working through this nonprofit, other nonprofits. There's so many different ways to contribute to shining light into this world. So that's what I'll leave you with is just an encouragement to continue to shine light into the world. Despite how confusing it is, despite how dark it seems at times, despite, maybe being confused and not knowing which way's up, which way's down, just keep moving forward and keep choosing to shine light in whatever way, big or small. Whether it's you see somebody struggling, you pray for somebody, right? You embrace someone and you just say, hey, do you need a prayer, right? Can I get you some food? Can I get you some water? How can I help you? It's really in those tiny acts of kindness. Just like Gandalf said, right? It's like in those tiny acts of kindness, that's where, what really keeps the darkness at bay. So I'm going to close off with how I started. I'm going to read Matthew 25 again and I'm just going to leave this with you, let you ponder it, because I really believe that in this time of great deception, of people that maybe are taking advantage of the teachings of Jesus, or really, using Christianity as a means to have control and power. Without getting into my specific views, I'll leave you with Jesus's words, and then we can let that sink in. We can meditate on it, and we can let that move us. So, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these of my brothers, you did it to me. Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you like this, make sure you subscribe, like this. It helps us get this content, get this message out there. Check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts now. We're going to be doing 2 episodes per week. Also, please comment. Comment below. Let me know what you want to talk about or discuss or what I should dive into. And next episode, I'm going to be sitting with Wifey again, so I'm excited for that. So stay tuned. See you on the next episode. Peace.